we're gonna just jump right into things. The best camera, I think, for adventure filmmaking, and I made a whole video about why, is the Sony a7S III. This camera rocks. It's lightweight, it's durable, it has a high quality image that comes out of it, it has amazing autofocus, great battery life, it's got amazing low light performance so you can capture things via moonlight if you'd like, which makes it the top contender for the best adventure film camera for 2024. But if you want a budget-friendly alternative, you got this bad boy, the Sony a6700. This camera is a crop sensor Sony camera that also is fantastic. It's super compact, so it can go with you when you're filming on the wall, or you can chuck it in a bag to go skiing with. It's all around, it's using 4K, 10-bit, the colors that come out of it are awesome, the autofocus out of it is awesome. It goes with me a lot of places as well. This is a great budget-friendly alternative. The dynamic range isn't as good as the Sony a7S III, but it still is a powerhouse and an amazing value for what you get. If you want to be an adventure filmmaker and you don't want to break the bank, or you don't want to invest in a full frame lineup right away, this Sony a6700 is a great starting point. I am a big fan of what Sony is doing in this day and age. They are innovating well, they are adapting to the needs of the creator economy well, they are listening to the consumers, and they are putting out cameras that are, in my opinion, better than the competition. But if you already have a lineup of Canon lenses, or are loyal to another brand, or excited about the color profiles that come out of Fujifilm, or interested in other alternatives, I've also linked some others down in the description below as well. But regardless of what brand you go for, I recommend looking for a few key features in your cameras. The things that make the most difference when you're out in the wild creating an adventure film is weather sealing, having 4K 60 frames per second to shoot slow motion moments in the highest quality that you can, long battery life, and a lightweight design. For weather sealing, you never know what you're gonna get caught in out there. For 4K 60, it's important to have these slow motion moments. Long battery life is important because you might be filming all day. You might be out in the backcountry and not able to access electricity for days and days at a time, and having a long battery life can help you shooting even when other cameras won't be able to. Then a lightweight design is crucial for taking these cameras on your adventures. Often you are doing the same adventure as the athletes that are in front of the camera. So having a heavy camera can really bog you down and make this experience a lot worse. So having lightweight cameras with all of those key features are a good starting place. Now let's talk about lenses. The lens for your camera is arguably just as important as your camera itself. When it comes to choosing lenses, versatility is key. For my full frame Sony camera, I often go for this Sony 24-105. This camera is great for the wide landscapes and the close-up action shots that I'll get on almost every adventure film. I love having a zoom lens like this because if I'm up on the wall or in a tight area where I'm not able to move around very easily, having a wide focal length to cut between various different shots by staying in the same location is super valuable. This is my favorite lens that I own. This is also like fallen out of cars and off of mountains and has been treated pretty rough, and it still is kicking today, so I love that. It's so rugged and such a good lens for adventure filmmaking. I won't spend too long on the other gear I have. I have this 85mm prime lens, a 35mm that's recording me right now, and this 14mm G Master wide angle lens. Between these three prime options and the zoom lens, this is all I feel like I will ever need for my full frame camera. I love all three of these lenses. I use all of them, and I don't really want to buy another one. I think these do a great job. When it comes to these smaller APS-C size cameras, lenses are actually a lot more fun to shop for because they're a lot cheaper. Because they need to cover a smaller sensor size, it's easy for them to make smaller lenses that can cover it and keep things moving and looking good. I'm honestly newer to the crop sensor cameras, so I'm still honestly figuring out which lenses I love the best with it. However, what works best for me at this time in my life is having these two lenses. This is the 16-50 optically stabilized Sony lens. I love this lens because it's so small. I can chuck this on this camera, take it up a wall with me, rock climbing or filming skiing, and it's so easy and is not inhibiting the adventure at all. I could run 20 miles with this camera and not be upset about it. I also have this 50mm 1.8, which is about the full frame equivalent of a 75mm, I think. I normally have the 35mm on my full frame camera, and then this being the 75mm equivalent B cam is a great two angles to cut between. I also think having this crop sensor camera that shoots 10-bit 4K, fantastic footage out of Sony's color science, and pairing it with my Sony a7S III, pretty much all I ever need for interviews at this stage of my career. I've balanced cameras on interviews in some pretty janky ways, and I think having a small rugged camera like these and small durable lenses can allow me to get into the creative process without having to worry about all of these technical aspects that come with making films in remote places. I'm often running a very limited setup when I'm out in the field, and having a small, durable, lightweight lens is kind of the best of the best. I will happily forego shooting at f1.8 all the time to shoot on this 24-105 f4 if it means that I'm able to get the shot. In some of these adventure filmmaking scenarios, getting the shot is difficult in and of itself, so letting the gear get out of my way and help me rather than hinder me is the best that I can ask for. So now that we've talked about the cameras and the lenses and some of the more glamorous parts, let's go into the nitty-gritty audio gear that I need to bring in order to tell these stories in the best way possible. Audio gear is not something that we're like most excited to talk about as filmmakers because the newer camera technology and the way things are innovating on the lens front and the camera front right now and drones are so exciting. But audio is really what makes a film go from good to great. And good audio can help elevate your film more than any lens purchase can be. If you have bad audio, no one's gonna watch it. If you have good audio but bad visual, people will still wanna watch your film. And thankfully, these microphones do a fantastic job, and I've been using them for 4 or 5 years, and I've never once had an issue. In fact, the audio that you're hearing in this video is coming from this microphone. I have 3 of them because I often am miking up multiple subjects for these films, and so I love having these set it and forget it lavalier microphones. You hit record, it records to a micro SD card in this box. Can run for multiple hours. Then I will either let the lavalier microphones die or I'll turn them off in the amount of time just before the battery dies, and that saves my recording. I can put it in, sync it with my camera, and the audio is fantastic all the time. There are definitely better, higher quality audio products out there, but I think for me, what's most important is that it works and it's easy. When it comes to syncing timecode and carrying around a boom mic all the time, it's just not realistic for the types of shoots that I'm often doing where I'm skiing or I'm climbing or I'm kayaking. But having these lavalier microphones where I can be focused on the storytelling, making sure I'm asking the right questions, making sure I'm filming the right things, while the audio I know is getting picked up, is such a weight off of my shoulders, and it allows me to just make a good film. These are all just tools, and this tool is a great one. In addition to the lavalier microphone, I will also have this shotgun, this Rode VideoMic Pro, which does a fantastic job at picking up audio in the field. I attach it to my camera, it's good enough, I like it, and it works for me. Now let's talk about gimbals and stabilization. Gimbals are really fun to talk about because there's a lot of really great gimbals out there. I have very specific needs when it comes to a gimbal because I'm often skiing with gimbals in a really intense environment. So I kind of need a gimbal that I don't feel too bad about treating poorly. And as you can see from the tape on the bottom of this one and all of the scratches and marks on this, I kind of love how beat up my gimbal is because it means it's getting used in the best way possible. Filming on a gimbal or any sort of stabilization can really help bring a higher production value, in my opinion, to a lot of these films, but also they are a total hassle to use if you're trying to do things quickly and streamline the process. So in my opinion, there's always this trade-off between, do I take more time, set up the gimbal, and get things moving, or do I just go handheld? So my requirement for a gimbal is that it is incredibly easy to use, and this gimbal is incredibly easy to use. This is the Zhiyun Weebill S gimbal, and there might be better gimbals on the market now, but this thing works so well with my Sony a7S III, and honestly even better for my Sony a6700 because it balances my camera, it does the modes I needed to do, the battery lasts forever. I think I've charged this thing 3 times all year, and I use it almost every single shoot. It packs super small. You can take off these tripod legs and put this in a backpack, whether or not it's a filmmaking backpack or not. This thing is so lightweight, so durable, and can go with me on any adventure. So high praise for a gimbal, but I love it. I think it's so good. I also think at the end of the day, if I don't use this, it's not total end of the world because the Sony cameras have really great in-body stabilization, but I think having a gimbal for, like I said, those skiing moments or a moment where I would like to bring a little bit higher production value, it does its job pretty well. And a moment you've all been waiting for, maybe, probably not, is the drone that I use. I feel like the expectation from drones is really high, and I have very low expectation for my drones because I think drones are literally just cameras in the sky. Like, it's replacing a helicopter. So if it records a video, I'm pretty stoked about it. But that being said, I think it's important to match the footage with my other camera without it looking too much of a difference in quality, so I opted for the DJI Mavic Air 2S. It's a long name. The reason I chose this one is because when I crashed my last drone in Mexico,
I definitely should not be flying in this right now.
But you may be able to faintly see a flashing red light. That is my drone. This was the other drone that we had on location with us, and it ended up being such a good experience that I bought one for myself. When it comes to drones, there's sort of two decisions to be made, which is how much do you want to pay for it and what size of drone do you want? And often those things are related. If you want a bigger sized drone, it's more expensive. If you want a smaller sized drone, it's cheaper, but it's a little less quality. So the bigger the drone, the higher the quality. The smaller the drone, the lower the quality. I don't need to be shooting in ProRes for most of my films. Most of my films, even though they get signed to networks and they get distributed through brands, I don't need to be shooting in raw footage all the time or shooting in ProRes delivering 8K videos. I'm often delivering story-based films, and if I'm able to keep people in the story, the resolution and the codecs don't totally matter. I am a one-man production house. I run my own production company, so I am the one at the end of the day that gets my footage, and I'm the one that edits it, and I'm the one that distributes it to all these different companies. So I'm not letting anybody down by not shooting in ProRes. I'm able to still get all of my needs met and all of the needs of the companies that I work with met with the qualities that I have. Which means this drone is kind of this perfect little middle size between a big drone and a small drone. This is kind of your like perfect run-of-the-mill middle line drone. And that means in 2024, this drone's fantastic. It shoots in 10-bit color, it's 4K, the battery life is fantastic. Even here in Boulder, Colorado, where I live at altitude, it flies for a long time. The range is fantastic. I've used this footage from everywhere from small social edits for companies to big, large international campaigns and photos that go on products. This is a really amazing tool. And I love that it's just like 2024 and we can buy a camera in the sky that like is such high quality and works well with all of these more expensive or budget-friendly cameras that we have. Now that we've outlined some of the technical gear that I will use, I think it's important to talk about how we carry this stuff. When it comes to picking a bag for these adventures, I would love to be able to recommend one bag that I use for everything, but that's just not the case. I'm sometimes filming surfing or mountain biking or trail running or skiing or rock climbing, and the bags I use for all of those different adventures has to be different. I'm often not using the same bag that I'm using for skiing, for mountain biking, because just the needs are different. For my general portable carry around everyday camera bag, I have this bag that I got off Amazon for like 30 bucks, and it has little dividers in it, and I think it does a great job at keeping my cameras in like the right place. And then you close it up and you go on your shoot. But when it comes to all these other types of shoots, I will sometimes be putting cameras in fanny packs. I'll sometimes be putting them in water housing. Sometimes I'm putting them just straight into the top brain of a hiking backpack. So I've linked some of the bags that I use in the description below if you're curious, but also just recommend trying stuff out for yourself and finding what works best for you. If you're filming an outdoor sport that you're familiar with, often the bag that you use for that sport specifically might work really well for carrying cameras as well. I don't usually have camera specific bags. I normally just put my cameras into bags that I'm already using for those sports. I think the most important thing is packing strategically and making sure your camera is accessible on these adventures, and dealing with the exact product and exact bag that you need varies so dependent that I'm not going to give you a one-size-fits-all solution, but I just recommend looking into it for yourself, know what type of stuff you'd like to film, and buy a bag that fits with that style. And as we wrap up this ultimate adventure filmmaking gear guide, I'd like to say also that a lot of this stuff has been accumulated over years and years of doing this. And I also would encourage you to look at buying lightly used or refurbished gear to bring the costs down. It's a great way to save money, but it's also a great way to save the environment. We don't always need to be buying the newest, best products right the second they get produced. A lot of these cameras, the Sony a7S III for example, came out 4 years ago, and I still think it's fantastic, and I will likely use it for another 4 years. It's not about having the most expensive gear, it's about how you use it. And the best films come from creativity and resourcefulness. Some of my most successful films cost $0 to make. I took this camera and I went out into the outdoors and I told a story that resonated with people. And I think at the end of the day, it's so easy to get caught up in all of these things. But really what matters is your heart and your creativity and your voice. So go out there, create a story, and I hope you learned something. And just know that your favorite piece of filmmaking gear might change, but what won't change is telling meaningful stories. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more coming in the future. I love you, I'm proud of you for going out there and making an adventure film with some of this stuff, hopefully. Have the best day ever. See you later.